Record.
Well, neither of us got a commission.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
Okay, the first item is public comment, and what I'll do is, this allows the time for people in the room and on Zoom to make comments to the board. So I'll wait to read the rules if we have, unless we, if we do have somebody that wants to comment. Is there anybody in the room that wants to make a public comment? Is there anybody on Zoom that would like to make a public comment? Raise your hand, please. Not anybody now?
No.
Okay. We'll move on. Consideration about the agenda.
Any changes proposed for the agenda? I'll move for approval as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, consent agenda. We got one item. Is that okay? Is it appropriate?
I'm okay with it.
I'll move for approval.
Okay.
I second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so we'll go right into our business items, Department of Revenue solar battery presentation. And Mike, do you want to introduce the person?
Yeah, Rob and Michael. And maybe Nick. Are you guys ready?
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'll get started here. I am hoping I can share my screen because I do have a PowerPoint drafted up for you.
Would you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and your team, Rob?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I just wanted to say thanks for having me. First off, just to the commissioners, I hardly ever get to speak to the assessor's boss. I know he's probably an elected official, but you've got a good one here in Mike Gorman, and I appreciate everybody, taking the time to invite us in today. So yeah, first off, I guess my name is Rob Motley. I am with the Oregon Department of Revenue. I am the Central Assessment team manager. So I manage a group of about 10 appraisers, and we value all utility type properties throughout the state. And that would include electrical generation, any utility scale solar battery type systems, which is what we'll talk about today. And I'll let Mr. Gomez go next and introduce himself.
Hi, yep, my name is Michael Gomez. Been with the department for 13 or 14 years now. Mainly with the CA team, I've been with, this is my 10th season. I was promoted to a team lead about a year and a half ago. So yeah, mainly right now I'm just reviewing all those utility appraisals that Rob mentioned. Yeah, thanks for the invite.
All right, and Nick next. Oh, Nick, I think you're muted.
Hello, everyone. Sorry about that. I was having a hard time unmuting myself. My name is Nick Harris. I'm an appraiser on the Central Assessment team. Been with the Department of Revenue on Central Assessment now for a little over 5 years. And I specialize in the renewable energy appraisals, so wind and solar. And I also do some communication and pipeline appraisals as well. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, so I'll just jump right in to my PowerPoint here, and just let me know if you can see the screen when it comes up.
Yes.
All right. Technology is the first hurdle, right? So, again, Mike had asked me to come and kind of share some of our expertise in the valuation of utility scale solar and battery storage systems. So that's I've only got 10 slides here, and I, wanted to take about 10 minutes, just maybe talk a brief overview about valuation of these systems, and then really just open it up for Q&A for the session, just because I know there's probably particular questions that we'd like to have answered that you'd probably want answers for. So we'll get to that after I have about 10 minutes here of slides. All right, so background, battery energy storage systems, they are brand new to the state of Oregon. And like I said before, with the central assessment team, we see all utility property throughout the state. And I can say that we only have one existing project that is a solar combination solar and battery energy storage system in Oregon. So just wanted that to be front and center here, that this is brand new technology. We don't have a lot of experience with these combined systems, but we do have a evaluation methodology that is established and is able to handle these new technology types. So yeah, we have one installed solar with battery energy storage in Oregon. I believe it's actually in Morrow County. And then we have one pure play battery energy storage system finished in December of this last year in Multnomah County, I believe, that just doesn't have any solar associated with it, but it is connected to the grid and supplies electricity to that utility off-taker. So what I wanted to kind of highlight here is the cost trends, because I know that with investment in a county, commissioners or other stakeholders are very interested in the cost of of these facilities and what type of revenue generation they can have as far as property tax dollars. So I'm going to initially talk about just the the cost trends and what that looks like for utility scale photovoltaic plus battery. And just to start out, battery data is very new. There's not a whole lot of information just about battery storage, but we do have some historical information for photovoltaic arrays. And so I'll show you those graphs here in a second. And just to, as an aside here too, a lot of this information that I pulled out for you is general market information that's available through the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. And that it's a great resource. If you're ever interested in digging in, that will answer a lot of your questions. All right, so yeah, and the only other point here is the reason you're going to see solar and battery storage hybrid systems is that they share an AC inverter. So there's a lot of components to these types of systems that make them more cost effective for supplying energy to the grid. And so I do anticipate there will probably be more systems like the ones we saw come in this last couple of years. So. All right, so just to kind of go over really quick, that what I just highlighted, the solar system itself produces direct current, and I don't mean to get too much into the weeds about it, but we have direct current and alternating current, and direct current is what a solar photovoltaic system will produce, and also the same type of electricity that a battery pack will produce. So both of those can hook up to what they call an inverter that converts all of the electricity to AC, which is what the grid uses, which is what supplies power to your house. So that's you see this part of the diagram, the bidirectional inverter. That is a common component that you can synergize with the rest of a solar photovoltaic system and connect to the grid. All right, so with that, this this graph here is the cost per watt in in direct current for a solar panel system. And this is from 2010 to 2023. You can see these costs, $6.50 in 2010 was the cost of a system, a utility scale system, and it's declined all the way down to $1 or about $1.20 as of 2023. So costs have declined significantly over that time. And the reason I mention that is just because when we do valuation costs, obviously a replacement cost is a very key component into how much value the system is worth today. So just like with any type of technology that's advancing, if the newer next greatest technology is cost significantly less, that obviously impacts the value of the current systems in place.
So, Rob?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, maybe this is obvious, but let's say we've got an older one that is at the 6.5, and how exactly does that valuation play out? Does that then get valued as less because it's no longer as competitive as it was? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'll get to that part where we're kind of jumping into the valuation component, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It has an impact. It has an impact on the value of all systems when the price of newer systems come down. Just like, any other market, the price of your car, if it gets better and cheaper, that's obviously going to impact the value of the existing car out there. So yeah, you're right on track. This is just one approach that we look at. And when we look at cost, we obviously look at the replacement cost of a system, and then we also use that to analyze how much depreciation on existing systems there are. So yeah, I'll move on to the battery energy storage system component. Again, the data that I pulled out, it isn't very historical. It's more of a projection based on costs that have been installed throughout the country in the past couple of years. This technology just hasn't been established yet, and it can be standalone or integrated with existing generation systems, but it works particularly well with solar. And so just to show you this graph, this actually starts with 2020, and forgive me for the units of measurement here. This is in dollars per watt hour, but it's the best data that I could come up with. And this kind of shows the same trend that, as these systems are developed and manufacturing, efficiencies come out, they'll become cheaper over time. It's not quite as steep as the photovoltaic systems have, but it still is projected to be a decline in cost, which will impact value going forward in the future. So to kind of jump back to your question, about valuation methodology, the cost component is just one of the components we look at when we value these types of systems. And, that cost is impacted by depreciation, which, means technological change, government incentives, the expected life of the property. There's a lot of components that can impact, what the original cost was to what is actually valued at today. The other approach we use is an income approach, and we actually at the Department of Revenue require taxpayers to file, and when they file, they give us their income and expense information, and we use that information to actually do a cash flow analysis that basically values based on the income that the properties generate. So that is kind of the other side of that coin. The other thing to note about an income approach is almost all of the utility scale systems are on a 20-year contract or more. So they're contracted incomes, and which actually helps in an instance like this when you have costs that are declining rapidly over time, in that contract doesn't change, and so the cash flows from these types of properties is actually more predictable than you would maybe expect. And then we always try to look at a market approach, but these types of properties don't generally sell. They generally just get installed and the owner will operate them for 20, 30 years. And so, to tie this back to exemptions, I know one focus for a decision that a lot of counties have to make is the payment in lieu of program for solar generation. And that's ORS 307175. And that was originally drafted in 2015. And it basically takes a nameplate capacity rating and applies a flat fee. And that is intended to essentially levelize the property tax dollars that you would collect for these projects over the life, of, well, at least a 20-year life of the project. So the caveats for a type of system that we're talking about here, a battery energy storage system and a solar array attached, those types of systems weren't originally contemplated to have battery storage in them, and so that component really wasn't part of the calculation of what that dollars per nameplate capacity amount is. So that's the only advice that I would give, to a county, is to, carefully consider that, that the cost of a battery storage system might be, it might be a significant component of the system, and it wasn't really that the pilot program dollars might not actually replace or all of the value that comes out of a battery energy storage system. The law itself doesn't distinguish between battery energy storage system and solar generation. And that's just kind of goes back to, 2015. And if I were to go back to our graphs here, you're looking at back when systems themselves were, $2.40 per watt versus today. So that fee in lieu of is, it was written at a different time for a different cost structure. And that's just the reality of an advancing technology like solar and battery storage systems. So I think oh yeah, and the only other thing to note when I go back to the this how the pilot, the fee in lieu of, is calculated, it's calculated off the nameplate of in AC that the system supplies to the grid. So that's $7,000 per megawatt, let's say, really only applies to the inverter, and it doesn't apply to the DC rating of the battery pack or the solar system itself. So that's just one thing I wanted to note for you guys for your consideration. So really, when if you were to take out the battery pack component of this system, that was originally what the pilot program was written around or considered, was that you would just have one solar photovoltaic system that would supply DC to an inverter, and not this extra battery pack along with it. Yeah, so I think that is really, I just wanted to give you a real high level overview. Hopefully that answered some of your questions, but I'd really like to open it up for any other questions you guys have.
Yeah, certainly. The one of your bullet points said that battery packs can be included in the cost assessment. So does that mean? What does that mean? I guess I'm confused by that when it says that it's not part of it, and then it also says it can be.
Yeah, I should clarify that. Thank you. You can make an agreement to for the pilot program, you can include those battery storage systems. That was kind of the advice that we were given by the Department of Justice, that sometimes components are specifically itemized in statute, and these are not. So originally you'll have a pilot program that was supposed to be for a solar voltaic system alone. Well, battery storage, if it's part of that system, qualifies under the statute. So we
Right.
value the system regardless. Just to clarify, we value the system, all the components of the system as a unit. But it's really what I was trying to highlight is that you can exempt it, or have it be part of the 7,000 per megawatt agreement if you so choose. So
So I think what he's trying to distinguish, Gus, is that when the pilot program legislation was passed back in 2015, no one even thought about battery storage. And now it's a component, and so there's nothing saying you can't use it as part of the pilot program. But the 5,500 to $7,000 range was just for solar only at the time. They did not, take into consideration the investment for battery storage. That's right, Rob?
thank you, Mike. Yep, exactly.
Rod, I got a question, Colin. Have you seen any split tax abatements between pilot and SIP? Because one of the things I think I'm kind of seeing is maybe some of these projects, I know on a couple of them, it looks like the battery is over half the invested cost, and the company advertises itself as renting out battery space to other renewables. So it's like the battery space is creeping into the total value of the project, So have you seen any split between a SIP and a pilot, or?
Like a pilot for solar and SIP for the battery storage of a combined project.
Yeah, I can say we haven't seen anything like that in any of the
Because
projects.
I think
we've
that's-
seen.
Not to interrupt you, but I think that was our main. My main, I'm not, I can't speak for the other two. My main concern, of course, was seeing if you have $1 billion solar project. Pilot and the property tax system's based on solar generation. Is a bunch of property sitting there, personal property sitting there, I guess a personal property, untaxed, appears to me that it could be, because you got the smaller solar generation you have, the less tax you're gonna pay, independent of how big your battery storage is.
Yes.
And especially now that we see that the battery storage costs per watt are double current what the solar, $1.20 to $2.40. If I read your graph correctly.
And also, now when you're talking about how you value the whole system, when they come out of the pilot program, which is what, like 15 years?
15 or 20, that's up to 20.
And then they'll go on the rolls at what these guys value now. So at that point, it's going to be valued as a total system. Which will be different than the way we've been taxing.
Yes and no. I mean, they're going to value it whether it's exempt or not. And
Right, no, I know. Yeah,
and
I
then
understand.
as far as if we were to split up, a pilot for the solar and an SIP for the battery storage, we would do their negotiations before any valuation went on.
True.
And we'd set, and the pilot, you're just, you're negotiating two things, the range, 5,500 to 7,000, and the term up to 20 years. In SIP, there's other, negotiations involved, but, it's outside of any valuation. It's just based on their investment and projected values we would see. So if we were gonna get a project in, I would probably reach out to Rob and his team and say, hey, can you give me a 15-year analysis of what this, 500 megawatt solar and 500 megawatt battery storage, what the value is gonna look like over time? And then we, start negotiations from there.
just to throw a scenario out there that hasn't even been used. What if we valued the whole thing on a SIP?
You can
Then
do that.
it
It
would,
doesn't matter.
yeah, I mean, it matters to the solar company.
Mhm.
I was just thinking. If that's something maybe we ought to look at, because then you capture the whole value. And that's the way they do it.
I mean, they'll use, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, but you guys in your valuation, you'll use any property tax exemption incentive as part of that valuation as well, right?
Yeah, could you say that one more time? I broke up.
Oh, sorry. In doing your valuation, you take into consideration any local property tax exemption as part of your valuation process, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
Okay.
there's a,
Could you
Yep.
elaborate on that?
yeah. Michael Gomez, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so typically property tax expenses is an operating expense for these projects. So we kind of have to,
Oh,
forecast that into the DCF, into our, cash flow analysis. So depending upon if there is some sort of exemption or, any change in what the property tax might be, we do look at that in our analysis.
okay. When you're using the business type of valuation. Rather than just. I'm sorry, you showed that slide. Did you say you use both a business valuation and a construction or investment evaluation? Yeah. Income, markets, okay. You use
Yeah.
all, those,
Yes.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and just to clarify too, for an income approach, in a situation where a battery storage facility may be, selling electricity separately or allowing the utility company to offtake or utilize that battery to levelize their grid. They there would generally be a contract associated with that, and that's how we would capture any value for the battery storage component in addition to, whatever the investment cost was initially.
Okay, just to pick your brain for a minute, maybe not just Oregon, but. I mean, you might go to a conference, when you talk about this and network. Are you seeing others, sites or systems where the battery is a bigger generator, battery storage, they're renting it out and it's becoming a bigger income portion than the actual solar generation? Are you heard about any of that, or? And you don't have to name names of where it's at, it's just.
Yeah.
Is that, I know you wouldn't, but have you heard of that? Is that going on at
Well,
all?
well, yeah, that references back to the the project that just finished this last year. There are battery storage systems, just pure battery storage systems that will receive electricity, but then discharge, when rates, I would say are higher or lower, just to levelize the grid. So those systems do exist, and they're starting to come online.
Okay. Any other questions anybody has?
So any idea on the life expectancy of a battery storage? I mean, the solar's 20 to 30 years, but how about the batteries?
Mike or Nick, did you have any comment about that? Michael?
Yeah, sorry, it wants me to ask for permission to unmute myself. So, yeah, I'll take a step back. For solar, I think that range has actually even increased a little bit over time. The life expectancy of those projects is probably more around 30 to 40 years, 40 years being the newer technology. But for battery storage, yeah, I think it's still kind of a new thing. So we're trying to research it. I think the new one we got, if I remember correctly, they put that it was expected to, be in operation for like 40 years. But then if you talk to other people, it's, 5 to 15. So you're kind of dealing with this broad range of somewhere between 5 and 40.
Kind of like the weather forecast.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that, that makes it extremely difficult for our, from our stance, because we have to determine a useful life for these things. And, I foresee a bunch of conversations regarding the life expectancy of these battery storage systems in the future, because it is a main component in what we do. So
I guess on that note, though, if you're using the income approach, does that really matter?
yes, that's a huge component, because let's, if
Oh, okay, for replacement costs.
yeah, if you're doing a 15-year DCF, you're gonna have to replace that battery after 15 years. And so, the value's gonna be drastically different if you have a 15-year piece of property versus a 40-year piece of property. Once you get in those later years of the DCF, the value does diminish quite a bit, but you're still talking about, having to replace that battery, 2 or 3 times if you were to look at it from like a 10-year lifespan to a 40-year lifespan.
And I have to assume that the batteries are lithium.
Yeah, it's a very similar technology to what you'll see in hybrid vehicles. The same battery technology. They really do. The life cycle depends on how many times that battery itself cycles, and it's the same question you might have if you have if anybody here has a hybrid vehicle. How long is that battery really going to last? And it really comes down to how much it's driven and how many times that battery cycles.
One more question, just sitting here looking at this and you got the market approach there. Is that because there hasn't been a lot of sales?
Yeah, these properties that we value, they generally do not sell, in an open market. They are owner operated, for the span of the contract. But we will use them if they do sell.
Okay, when Civic Flats sold to the Canadian company,
That was wind though.
I know, but I'm just saying, they handle wind too, right? So. I know that was wind. I'm just saying, if they use the same approach for valuation on wind, is that gonna be a factor in the future? Was it a factor with how you handle Shepherd Flats?
Yeah, because we had a wind project that sold about 5 or 6 years ago. I guess his question is, would you guys utilize that sale in the valuation for the following years with the new owner?
I would have to look into that. I would say it'd probably be looked at or considered for maybe a year or two. But once you kind of get away from, 2 years, even maybe a year after the sales price, the value
I
can
don't get you
drastically.
off track and started talking about something you wonder. I'm just curious because I see that, there might be a similar incident that would happen if, because I've heard that some of these, they'll develop them and then sell them pretty soon, quickly after they're built.
Yeah, that's very typical. I mean, when we say these things don't sell, they do right off the bat. The builder is a different entity than, the operator. And so typically they're built, sold really quickly. And so you have a sale for year one. But when you're trying to develop, a valuation model, that sales price is going to be completely different than if you're trying to value that same piece of property 5 years later.
Okay.
Just because, they've lost 5 years of cash flows, all the investment tax, like there's usually an investment tax credit given right at the beginning. That's usually used, to offset the income taxes. So there's a lot of variables that can go away to alter the valuation.
And on an immediate sale, the price is already probably set before they even start the project,
Yeah.
I'm guessing. Anyway, okay, that's all the questions. Got anything good?
So under the income approach, does the valuation deteriorate the same as if you use just the cost approach?
I'll let Nick or Michael answer this.
Yeah, so if I understand your question, um, they do come up with different results. I would say in year one, it's really close. And when I say after year one, they're different, it's mainly because of that investment tax credit. So if for those of you that don't know, you know, these entities get a 30% credit on their income taxes based upon the cost of the project. So if they put in, you know, a $10 million project, they get to basically offset $3 million of their income taxes. That's one of the biggest drivers of these people putting in these projects, is to basically offset their income taxes. And that's they only get that one time, and it's at the beginning of the project. So that's why you see a lot of these projects being built. They get the investment tax credit and then they sell them, because they're not in the business of operating a solar project. They want the investment tax credit. And so that could be a 30%. We consider that as like a cash flow in year one. So we would, you know, that is a, yeah, I mean, it's a cash flow for the project. So after year one, when that incentive is used, year two, the value drops a lot. You can almost say close to 30%, because the investment tax credit has been used. So once you get away from year one, the income approach and the cost approach are going to be vastly different. Just with that one, you know, criteria.
That seems really unfair, but that's not great.
Want to know? Yeah, okay, well, thank you guys very much. It's very informative. We appreciate your presentation.
Yeah,
Thanks
thanks,
for taking the time. Yeah.
thanks, Rob and Michael and Nick. Appreciate you guys taking the time this morning and educating us on batteries. I learned a lot.
Yes.
I
Well,
just
we
thought
appreciate.
Costco and put a bunch of AA batteries.
Yeah, I don't. That could happen. I don't know. We haven't seen a whole lot of these projects yet. So, but we really do appreciate the invite, and we're open for questions as well. You know, if you have any follow-ups later on, we can definitely get back to you.
We'll go bug Mike and let him play. Okay, no, appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thanks again.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. That takes care of 5A, and then 5B is assessment of tax. EAFFA capital grant resolution, Mike.
Yeah, part of my department, part of the treasurer's department, and what used to be the Board of Property Tax Appeals, which is now called PVAB, or Property Valuation Appeals Board, is partially grant funded from this CAFA grant through the state. And basically, we use budget numbers or proposed budget numbers initially to come up with a resolution that you will fund those at that level. I know we haven't been through the budget season yet. A lot of counties haven't. So we may be back for another resolution. If those numbers change, if, you know, the proposed budget changes any. The grant application is due tomorrow, so that's why we're here today. And the number on the resolution is you know, basically my budget, part of the treasurer's budget and the appeal budget, department budget. And then there's some factors involved from the CAFA grant application that comes up with that number. And this is just stating that you'll fund those departments at a certain level. And then we'll get, you know, the money. It's about, it used to be about 40% of the budget, but CAFA fund itself, its statewide fund has dropped. It's what supplies that fund is delinquent tax interest and recording a recording fee. Every document recorded, $9 I think goes into this CAFA fund. You know, the last several years, we haven't had as much delinquent taxes. So that component has dropped, and then the recording fee has never been indexed for inflation. So that started back in, I think, the late 90s, that the $9 fee. And so that's why, you know, costs have gone up, but the fund hasn't. So right now it's about 10% of my budget roughly, or a little less. I think the average the last 3 or 4 years, we've gotten anywhere from 130 to 150,000. So, you know,
That's still,
it's something.
yeah.
Absolutely.
It, as Mike and I talked about it, pretty much pays for one and a half of his personnel. So it's pretty vital. The state is looking to see what they can do about changing the percentage of reimbursement and what's available, but until they figure it out, we want to make sure we still have on track to what we can.
Any questions? Okay, before we move on to the motion, I got a kind of a housekeeping question, and this will be directed at staff here is. If someone, and I kind of asked Gus, I don't know how I felt about it, but to read the motion a couple of weeks ago, just as it was written. Now, the reason I asked that, I will tell you, is not to be, you know, hard ass, but when you put motions into the record, do you put them exactly as we say them, or do you put, like on this one, motion to approve R-2025 CAFA grant resolution, or you just put motion? And the reason I'm thinking is if someone does a data search
Yeah.
for R-2025 CAFA, and you put in directly the motion to approve and sign resolution,
Yeah, I'll put in the resolution number and like specific.
you
details.
do that, okay. So you change the motion a little bit. I'm just trying to make sure that, and I'm not saying that you're not,
Yeah.
you know the intent of everything. I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
if someone does a search,
Yeah, if you guys say like you motion to approve resolution R-2025-3, that's exactly what I'll put.
Right.
If, and
If
then
they make a
usually
motion-
if you say if somebody says that they motion to approve as the motion was written, it's generally, from what I've seen so far, is it'll be the exact text of like motion to approve R-2025 versus the motion to approve and sign resolution.
and that was my question, just to make sure that if somebody is looking for information on this search, that this resolution motion is going to pop up on the search.
Oh, Bobby's
Rather
got her
than just
hand up.
motion to approve and sign resolution. Okay, I just, so,
And Sheriff, if for transparency and ease, we can make sure that future, if it's got a numbered resolution there, we have that motion, just make it easier for the BOC.
well, like I said, it's not so much transparency, it's more searching data. And if somebody wants a public record search.
Yeah.
And they want you to turn over everything related to R-2025. Then it would make it easier to me, I would think, if staff would do that, and everything related, motions and everything. Will pop up. That's the only reason, it's housekeeping, so, okay.
When Bobby had her hand raised and she's unmuted.
So for searching that record, when it's in my records, in the matter of, it would be nice if the CAFA was in there. So it gets indexed. It will get indexed, but if it were in the resolution, it would be nice. Cause I'm gonna have newbies coming in, so they may not get that.
Okay. Well, I'll test it out. We'll see how the group feels about how I say it. How's that sound? I move to approve and sign resolution number, R 2025-03 CAFA grant.
I'll second it.
Been moved to second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Okay.
And if I could get that
Yeah.
sooner the better, so I could get that submitted. I'd like to get it submitted this afternoon.
We'll have
That's
that
my
signed
last-
for you this after, or right after the meeting. And we'll bring a copy over.
Awesome.
Okay, next up is our Oregon PERS, thanks, Mike, for that, Oregon PERS resolution R 2025-04, Lindsay.
Good morning.
Back again for purse. Um. You had approved resolution 2025-2 on April 2nd. I had worked with the PERS implementation team on that resolution. After it was signed, we sent it over to the PERS team and they forwarded on to their legal team to type up the agreement. After their legal team reviewed, they had stated that they thought it was a little confusing due to the language of establishing PERS agreement because we already are a PERS employer. And so they wanted to make some clarifications on expanding its coverage to additional groups. And so what we did was sent this over to council and he recommended to rescind the last resolution and nullify it. And create a new resolution with the number of 2025-4 with the recommended comments from the PERS legal team. And those comments were provided as an attachment on directly from PERS. You have any questions for
Do
me?
we need to nullify resolution 2025-2 first? Or will this just override it and then?
I would say that's a question for council, but in the resolution, on bullet point 1, it does say that this resolution nullifies and rescinds the last one, so I would
Yeah,
assume
Seems
it's
clear
included,
to
but
me.
I would
that's fair.
defer to council.
Yeah, okay, motion then.
We'll move to adopt resolution 2025-4, which replaces and nullifies resolution 2025-2 to incorporate the edits requested by Oregon PERS.
I second that.
Yeah, second, further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Okay,
Thank you for your flexibility, understanding.
Thank you.
okay. Next item up is the Morrow County School District Board letter for support. That's me. I'll give you a little background. Last week, before the deadline. Becky Kendall, the chair of the school board, with all the names of the school board members from the school. Emailed me and asked me if we would consider writing a letter of support as a joint letter from BOC in support of the school bond. I told her, well, I would ask you guys if you want to do that, and then since the ballots go out, I think today. Yeah, so,
Very soon.
and basically that's kind of when the election starts, is when the ballots go out. So I was originally talking about having it on the 7th, but let's bump it up since it did come in before the deadline. And I took the liberty of writing a letter, putting it in there. If you want to edit it or rewrite, whatever you want to do, but I just kind of to get the process going and get ahead of rather than waiting a week. So anyway, you have a proposed letter there and an ask from the entire Morrow County School Board that we support it, so whatever your thoughts are there.
I think you did a good job.
Thank you. But it reflects everyone's thoughts.
Yes.
Okay,
Thanks for me.
And Chair, if I could just make a clarification.
yeah,
Just to let the commission know, staff are precluded from participating on any type of bond issue. And so, Chair Sykes has drafted this, taken, and just for a note for public transparency, staff has had no participation on that and will not take any action on that. But it is allowed for the board commission as elected officials to participate and advocate on as a body to do so. We've requested clarification, and that is totally acceptable. And from this letter, as far as publicizing that would be an action by VOC itself. And so just to make sure we're all above board and taken care of. But so this is an action fully legal and acceptable according to the state laws that we reviewed.
well, thank God for running that by legal, because I just assumed, I'd seen it before, and I thought, no, it's fine, but he did check it out, make sure we're
Okay.
walking the right line there, so appreciate that. So anyway, I'll entertain a motion if everyone agrees on this.
I move to approve the Morrow County School District School Bond Letter of Support. All second.
Been moved and seconded. Further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. And then, that letter, well, I don't know, Matt, you might have to go back into legal again. Can we put that on our website, or can Valerie participate in this distribution at all? Or not, I'll do it. Just give me the signed letter, I'll distribute it. Yeah.
That was the cleanest.
Now, let's do it the cleanest way. You like something? Okay. That concludes our
Oh,
business.
and I think the copy of the agenda that I passed out was the old version. We have the DLCD solar siting consideration also in the packet.
This was the letter that we were looked at previously that Commissioner Peterson wanted to consider after we had the presentation by the Department of Revenue solar battery presentation.
Okay. All that cover sheet on us, so they do remember seeing it was Gus's.
Yeah.
So just turn it over again.
So it's the same thing that we talked about at our last meeting when I brought it up and shared it with you guys. It's really just, it's a letter that we really want, our concerns as Morrow County, given that solar is being put to the forefront and being tested on a level here that it's not being tested anywhere else in the state, where the guinea pigs, for lack of a better phrase. And so just really hammering on the cumulative impacts of, we would really like to see these expanded, and are there multiple routes that we could consider when we're looking at how the solar rules affect us. So today is the last day to submit to the Oregon Solar Day.
Any questions, Bud?
No, I guess when I read it, we talk about the cumulative impacts and the little C and the A and B underneath that. We talk about 2 mile study area around. Boy, it really seems like this can really hamper somebody's ability to develop something on their property and be limited. Kind of their rights. Yeah, I mean, if it's the state that allows them to do it, I'm not sure why we adopt something that's more restrictive than what the state says that they can do.
Because the state ones, as it's currently constructed, may not in fact actually reach outside of some of these big projects. That's my opinion. So,
Okay, the other motions. Again, we don't have to cover that.
I'll move to approve and sign letter to the DLC.
Do we hear a second? Okay, hearing none, the motion dies for lack of a second. Okay, that concludes, that's all our business items, right? Okay. Next up, we're gonna have an executive session that I'm gonna call a 5-minute break. Back with the executive session. That's usually the cue to go, right? Okay. Call the meeting back to order, Multnomah County Commission. And now we were preparing to go into executive session. Multnomah County Board of Commissioners now meet in executive session, pursuant to ORS 192-6602H, which allows the commission to meet in executive session, to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of the public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. Representatives of the news media and designated staff shall be allowed to attend the executive session. All other members of the audience are asked to leave the room. Representatives of the news media are specifically directed not to report on or otherwise disclose any of the deliberations or anything said about these subjects during the executive session, except to state the general subject of the session of previously announced. No decision may be made in executive session. At the end of the executive session, we will return to open session and welcome the audience back in the room. And there is no anticipated actions right now.
We actually have it here as we return to open session. There might be a potential decision or action.
You do?
Yes.
Oh, of course, that's, yeah, you're right, okay, so when we return to open session after the executive, there is a potential for decision or action item as a result of the executive session. So executive session, so we'll be back live here. When we're back on.
Yes, back online. And recording has started again.
Right now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, we're back in, out of executive session and, we will have some action to take, so. You have a motion you want to propose?
I move to terminate the contract with Univeris and to direct staff to take all necessary steps to terminate that agreement and recoup costs.
Second.
Been moved in second, and any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, motion carried. Okay. Let's move on.
Yes.
Okay, with that, we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.